Let's speak to Errol Moorcoach, who is a spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK. Errol, thank you very much for joining us on LBC News this evening. Donald Trump seems to be quite pleased that he is getting this unprecedented second state visit. What do you think is going to happen over the next couple of days?
I think it's going to be, in general, a little bit less than everybody is hoping for in terms of tangible results. A lot of people are saying, hey, we've got this, Trump's a big Anglophile. He loves the pomp and circumstance. All of that is 100% true. And I myself like it. However, Donald Trump is really going to treat this as a two-tiered thing. He sees this as a state visit with King Charles. Now, is he going to blend that over completely? Is he going to give away bargaining chips to Keir Starmer just because he enjoys the pomp and circumstance? That's where I think maybe the reading has been a little bit too ambitious from the British strategic side. I think Donald Trump is a hardball negotiator. He's coming over. He obviously has a deep love for the UK, but he has some issues, and as does J.D. Vance and as does the general American people about certain things like free speech. And I think those are the things that he might be more interested in seeing where he can be ameliorated on this trip before he was to perhaps break some of his tariff rules or whatnot. But on the other side, Trump does want to curry favor. He does have that inherent like of the British people. He's a taxpayer in your country, for example. So there is the very good chance that you might see a reduction of tariffs or a strategic announcement or something perhaps collaborative focused on AI, where Trump is very big, as well as Melania Trump is big in the AI motivation for young people. So maybe collaborative things. So I think that's the broad spectrum thing we're looking at. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves and think that this is anything more than a very grand and opulent state visit, which is what Donald Trump is there for above all else.
So he's here to have a good time, in essence.
Well, he's here to have a good time. It's incumbent upon you and your tactical diplomatic corps that has, run the world for many, many centuries very well to now influence him to make a deal on the spot. He's very influenceable. You have a guy who not only loves your country, wants to work with your country, but also wants to cut deals. So, for example, there was talk about giving him the freedom of the City of London. I don't think that ever materialized, but the concept of bringing him down to sit with, with those gentlemen there and hear about them and how their perspective of British international mercantile trade is being abrogated with his tariffs. Maybe, these are the things you have to do. So Donald Trump isn't going to come over there and say, oh, you've invited me for tea. Let me give you the keys to the castle. You invited him for tea and the keys to your castle. Now convince me. That's sort of the situation you're in.
You mentioned free speech, something that Donald Trump has raised lots of concerns about, as has J.D. Vance of late. And there has been concerns raised, hasn't there, about the Online Safety Act. There's a certain irony, isn't there, about Donald Trump and J.D. Vance attacking what they say are attacks on free speech this side of the Atlantic, when Donald Trump is doing quite a lot of that himself in the US.
Well, which examples are you pointing to in the US?
Well, people he doesn't like and news articles about him that he doesn't like. He's trying to shut them down, isn't he?
No, he responds to them. He's never shut. That's not true to characterize. He's tried to shut them down. In fact, he hasn't shut down any news organizations. For example, let's take ABC or CBS. They slandered him. They're billion-dollar corporations, and they paid a $15 million or $10 million penalty. But that's not shutting down a news organization whatsoever. I mean, that's simply untrue.
But
he disagrees with them, and he has freedom of speech too.
The effect of such actions, though, are to make media organisations cower, aren't they? And to be perhaps less.
If you've lied, you as a host have committed slander and openly have done that, LBC Radio is liable for that. Now, obviously, you wouldn't do that because you're a professional. Now, these people did do that deliberately, and their organization said, wow, we really made a mistake. We admit to the fault. But that doesn't mean that ABC and CBS and all these organizations are out of business. These guys control the narrative for the majority of traditional Americans over the age of 40, 45. Donald Trump uses the media, and he also has his own free speech rights. So when you attack him in the media and he goes and responds in the media, there's very few people who are playing free speech at the level of Donald Trump. But to say that he has taken down or wants to put down media just because he doesn't like journalists and doesn't like how they're reporting on him isn't the same thing as an authoritarian showing up and shutting down newspapers like Abraham Lincoln did, for example, before the Civil War, which was authoritarian, but it was something that needed to be done. But that doesn't parallel at all to Donald Trump, who just dislikes the media, along with the majority of Americans.
We did actually hear, before he set off for the UK, at Joint Base Andrews, he was asked by an Australian journalist a question that Donald Trump didn't quite like very much. And he actually... He kind of went for the journalist. He said, "You're doing a very bad job." Effectively, I can't remember the exact quote now, but that doesn't sound like free speech, does it? Allowing free speech.
Well, hang on a second, because it was a little bit of a back and forth. He said that your president's coming. You're questioning me, impugning my character, saying that I'm running my business illegally, which I'm not doing. My sons are doing it. It's all in a trust. And he said, you're bad faith. And he, kind of jokingly, like, I'm going to tell your leader. And then next question, and told him to be quiet. That's not, he's engaging with the media. Joe Biden didn't have a press conference for 190 days. Donald Trump walks up to a gaggle of people, friend or foe, takes their questions. Yes, he's bellicose. Yes, he tells people, hey, I disagree with you and you're an idiot. And maybe he shouldn't do that. Okay, but that's what he had to do to become president 2 times. And that's how he's got the second state visit, by being Donald Trump and dominating every news cycle for the last 10 years. And also never letting a slight go unpunished, no matter how small. Very rare for a leader to stoop to all those lows that he's done, but he had to fight from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. And I think that's how his approach has always been.
You'll be aware that Lord Peter Mandelson was recently sacked as Britain's ambassador to the US because of his close friendship, as it turns out, to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, a longtime friend of Donald Trump as well, if we go back in history. Do you think that there is the potential for a lot of awkwardness, particularly on Thursday when we have those discussions between the Prime Minister and the President?
I think the awkwardness in regard to Mandelson wouldn't be functional. Obviously, I understand, you're a newsman, you have to say what you have to say, but Donald Trump, just to go back, he removed Epstein from his club. He was one of the first people to disassociate with him back in the late 80s, said you're banned from Mar-a-Lago for your behavior. So while Jeffrey Epstein knows everybody, including Bill Clinton and, Bill Gates and all the hotshots, they were not dear buddies, despite perhaps the contention here. Now, Mandelson, as far as the American perspective, nobody in our country knows who your ambassador is, and I don't mean that with any disrespect. Most Americans just don't know who any ambassador to the United States is. So as far as how that will play in person, I don't think Donald Trump really is there to talk about it. I doubt Keir Starmer, for all of his foibles, would waste this opportunity to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. So I think it's a non-issue.
Well, it's not so much Keir Starmer raising it, it'll be reporters raising it, won't it?
I suppose so. It will be reporters raising it, but how far do reporters want to go to antagonize a situation? Why was Mandelson appointed to that role after they knew he had repeatedly been friends with Epstein after the fact? That's the thing. Like, Donald Trump's involvement with Epstein is well documented. Mandelson just sort of had a weird secret one that then came true, and now it's being brought up. I think that casts more aspersions on your government than anything else.
And you mentioned Donald Trump severing ties with Jeffrey Epstein. You mentioned the 80s. I think they were close much longer than that, weren't they? There was this letter from 2003, wasn't there?
Well, you'd have to get the date of when he was banned from Mar-a-Lago, which was the specific thing I was referring to. Now, the letters that were sent to him on his birthday were from a lot of very famous people. And now I'm not here to argue like semantics on it, but a lot of times you'll have a producer or a publisher who will send around these things and sign off on it. It looks like Bill Clinton was in there. It looks like a lot of people signed into those letters. They obviously kept a cordial relationship. Jeffrey Epstein was a mover and a shaker, and he really did very well at infiltrating places. But he was banned for life from Mar-a-Lago by Donald Trump for inappropriate conduct with a young lady. And I think, by the way, at Mar-a-Lago, that was the first club in Palm Beach to allow blacks and Jews to be a member as well. So Donald Trump is not only an inclusive person, but he's somebody who, when he saw bad behavior, removed it from his social club. There's not a lot else he can do besides the fact that now the FBI has said apparently he had been a confidential informant, actually, against Jeffrey Epstein in some of these trials back in the past with Acosta and some of these people. So the involvement there runs very interestingly, but it certainly doesn't show that there's any deep long-term friendship between Trump and Epstein, other than they lived in the same town and Epstein had an ability to just talk to everybody beyond belief. He seemed to have a Rolodex that was unmatched, and Donald Trump very briefly was in it, but a lot more important people were in it for a very long time, and I think that's something that should be more focused, including Lord Mandelson.
And just finally, there is the potential for some protests while Donald Trump is in the UK. Do you think that will be an issue for the president?
Oh, no. I wish I was there this time. It was really a lot of fun last time we were down there. They were protesting plastics. They had the big Trump baby. They were selling Trump toilet paper. That's sort of the essence of, open democracy. You're welcome to come out and protest. And probably if you're able to get the right location, maybe he'll see it from the motorcade. But you're talking about Donald Trump, a guy who's protested every which way 6 days to Sunday. I mean, you're not going to hurt his feelings. You're not going to hurt his supporters' feelings. In fact, a lot of us are kind of impressed by the creativity of some of your protests. You guys have cool language and cool lingo. And the left in our country really likes the sort of insults you guys have and like the sort of Britishisms you guys have. So honestly, it's cool, man. We're there to meet the king. We don't care what the protesters have to say whatsoever.
Errol Moorcock, thank you very much for joining us. Spokesperson for Republicans Overseas UK. Donald Trump due to land at Stansted Airport later this evening. Windsor Castle